My wife's family invited me on their annual lake trip. I paid for the cabin deposit, groceries, and gas for the van. When we got there, her brother handed me a list: breakfast prep, dishes, firewood, kayak setup. You're the helper, right? My wife just laughed and said, he's better when he's busy. They took the only bedroom and left me on an air mattress in the mudroom. The final straw was when her cousin told me, we don't usually invite outsiders, but you seem useful. I packed my bag in the middle of the night. 2 months later, I got an invitation to pay for the next trip. I'm 39. I've been married to Margot for 5 years. I met her at a cookout some friends were hosting. She was sharp, fun, and quick with a joke. We hit it off. I didn't know much about her family at first. All I knew was they were tight-knit and did everything together. What I didn't know is that meant no outsiders allowed. And I would never be more than an outsider. For 4 summers, Margot went on this big family lake trip to Flathead Lake in Montana. Every time I asked to come, she'd say, it's just family. It's always been just family. I didn't push it. I thought maybe one year they'd finally let me in. Year 5, she says, good news, they said you can come this year. She said it like I'd just been knighted or something. Then she followed it up with, but they want everyone to pitch in. It's kind of their thing. No problem. I figured pitching in meant normal stuff, helping set up chairs, grilling, things like that. I told Margot I'd even cover the cabin deposit since I finally got invited. That was $1,400. She said everyone usually pays their share, so I'd get it back later. Spoiler, I never did. 2 days before we left, Margot asked me to load up on groceries. I told them we'd grab the essentials, she said. Just bring the receipt. Clark said they'll Venmo you. I dropped about $370 on groceries and another $160 on gas for the trip up. I drove behind Clark's van the whole way. 7 hours in heavy traffic, with a cooler leaking on my back seat. We got to the cabin in the early evening. I was hauling coolers and grocery bags in both arms while everyone else was hugging and laughing. I didn't even get a, hey man, thanks for coming. Clark met me at the door and handed me a folded piece of paper. He smirked. What's this? I asked. He said, your helper duties. It's kind of tradition. I opened it. The list said, breakfast prep, daily, dish rotation, every meal, firewood and kindling trash runs to dumpster kayak haul/setup, and under that, if Doug finishes early, check with Clark or Tessa for more. I looked at Margot, waiting for her to laugh it off. She didn't. She just said, he's better when he's busy. Like I was some kind of golden retriever. The rest of the family had already chosen their rooms. Clark and his wife got the master. Margot and I thought, would get the second room. Nope, his teenage daughters had that one. The loft was reserved for her cousin and his girlfriend. I asked Margot, where are we sleeping? She said, oh, it's not a big deal. You've got the mudroom. I'll probably crash with Jess and Tessa anyway, since we're doing early hikes. The mudroom. No door, a window with no curtain, and an air mattress that let out air like a balloon with a pinhole. It was right by the front entrance, too, so every person who came in or out stomped past my head. No one talked to me unless they needed something. Ice run. Doug. Firewood. Doug. Dishwasher. Doug. I tried to sit down and have a beer the second night, and Clark said, you're on dinner cleanup, right? That means wiping the table too. Every task I did was either ignored or critiqued. But the moment that finally pushed me over the edge happened on day 5. Tessa, one of Margot's cousins, had just come out of the lake. She dried off, looked me over, and said, you're really useful. We don't usually bring outsiders, but you're kind of like the resort staff we never had. She was completely serious. I didn't say anything. I just smiled. But inside, I was burning. I went inside, packed my bag in silence. It was 2:47 a.m. I remember because I kept checking the time, heart pounding, trying not to make noise. I walked past the kitchen where someone left a wine glass tipped over and cheese crusted to a plate. I didn't clean it. I walked to the Subaru, loaded my stuff, and left. No note. No goodbye. I drove through the night. No music. No stops. Just silence and rage. Margot didn't text until 10 a.m. Where'd you go? We need the ice chest. No, are you okay? No apology. Just a question about the ice chest. I stayed quiet. 4 days. Then weeks. Then months. I didn't go to family dinners. I didn't reply to group texts. I went to therapy. I thought about divorce. Margot noticed, but never asked me why. 2 months later, I got an email from Clark. I didn't answer the email right away. I needed a few days to think. Not just about the trip, but about Margot, her family, and everything that had built up over the past 5 years. I started making a list. Not a petty list, but a record. Every time I'd paid for something and never got paid back. Every comment they'd made, every time I'd been treated like a background character. Then I made a plan. First thing I did was reply to Clark. I wrote, "Hey Clark, sure, I can cover the deposit again. Just let me know the exact dates. Looking forward to it." He wrote back 5 minutes later, "Awesome. Same cabin, July 15th to 22nd. Send the deposit by the 10th so I can confirm it with the owner." Thanks, man. So I did. I sent the money, $1 just like he asked. But this time, I didn't send it to the rental owner. I called the cabin company myself and reserved the place for the same week, under my name only. And I paid in full, not just the deposit. I used a portion of the savings I'd been putting away for a future trip I was going to take with Margot. That trip was clearly never going to happen. Then I waited. On July 14th, the night before they were supposed to arrive, I called the cabin company and asked if anyone had tried to double book the place. The manager laughed and said, "Yeah, some guy named Clark called 3 times. But we told him it was already fully paid and reserved under someone else." I smiled. The next morning, I loaded my car with snacks, beer, fishing gear, and my own damn ice chest. I invited 2 guys from work I trusted, Jason and Rick. They'd both gone through divorces, both knew how it felt to be treated like crap, and both could keep a secret. We pulled up to the cabin around 3 p.m. I was sitting on the deck, beer in hand, feet up on the railing, when Clark's van came up the drive. The look on his face when he saw me already there. Pure confusion. Then it turned to anger. He got out and said, "What the hell, Doug? Why are you here already?" I said, "I booked it. In my name. You didn't think I'd pay again without getting anything out of it, did you?" Margot climbed out of the van. She looked stunned. "You booked it? You never told me." I shrugged. Didn't think I needed to. Tessa got out next. She didn't say anything, just stood there with her bag like someone forgot to pick her up from the airport. I let the silence stretch out. Then I said, "I've got the key." "You don't." Clark stepped forward. "You need to give us the key. You paid with the group's money." I laughed. "No, I paid with my money. You never reimbursed me for last year, remember? This makes us even." Margot looked like she wanted to scream. "So what, you just left us stranded?" I looked at the line of annoyed, sweaty people standing by the van. I said, "You left me in the mudroom last year. This is better than that, right? Jason and Rick stood behind me, sipping beer and not saying a word. Just watching. Clark's wife whispered something to him. He shook his head. Tessa pulled out her phone and started texting someone. Margot walked up and said quietly, "You're really doing this?" I looked her in the eye and said, "You laughed when they gave me that helper list. You never had my back. This is me helping myself for once." They ended up driving to a cheap motel 40 minutes away. The cabin manager told me later they tried calling again that night, offered double to cancel my reservation. No dice. That week at the cabin. Peaceful. I cooked only when I felt like it. Slept in the actual bed. No helper duties. No condescending comments. Just me, my two friends, and a quiet lake. On the last night, I stood on the deck, beer in hand, and saw a notification pop up on my phone. It was a group text from Margot's family. They were already planning next year's trip. And guess what? They added me again. Not as a guest. Not even as the helper. They labeled me Doug, pay guy. They still didn't get it. I didn't respond to the group text. Not at first. But it sat there, burning a hole in my brain. Doug, pay guy. Not Doug, Margot's husband. Not Doug, guest. Just a wallet with legs. And Margot? She didn't even try to hide the fact that she'd stayed silent in the group chat. No, hey, maybe don't call my husband that. Nothing. A week after the cabin trip, I got a text from her cousin Jared. Just 2 words, not cool. I didn't answer. A few days later, Margot sat me down in the kitchen. She had that stiff, cold look she used when she was about to say something rehearsed. "We need to talk," she said. I nodded. She started slow. "That trip meant a lot to my family. You embarrassed them. You embarrassed me. I don't know how you thought that was okay." I just stared at her. She continued. "And now they don't feel like they can trust you. They don't even want you at Thanksgiving." "Good," I said. Her eyes widened. "Excuse me?" I said good, I repeated. "Because I've been thinking a lot. About the last 5 years. About what I've put up with. And I'm done pretending." She shook her head. "So what, you're just going to cut my family off? Over one trip?" "No," I said. "Over everything. You laughed when your brother handed me that list. You let them dump me in the mudroom. You watched me pay for everything and never said a word. You let them call me a helper, a pay guy, and you did nothing." She crossed her arms. "You're overreacting." That word, overreacting, that was the moment I knew we were really done. That night, I pulled up my bank statements. I put together a spreadsheet. Every cost I covered on that trip, gas, groceries, deposit. And not just that year. I went back through every event, every family weekend where I'd footed the bill. Camping gear. Airbnb rentals. Tickets. I added it all up. It was over $6,000 across 5 years. I sent the spreadsheet to Margot and CC'd her brother Clark. I said, "Please see the attached. Since you all seem to think I'm just the pay guy, let's treat this like a business. I'll wait 14 days for reimbursement before taking further steps." Margot blew up. "You're seriously charging my family now? Are you out of your mind?" I replied with one line, "Not anymore." But I wasn't done. 2 days later, I got a call from a man named Phil. He was the owner of the company that managed the lake cabin rentals. He said, "Clark just tried to blacklist you from future bookings. Said you were disruptive and violated some family agreement." I laughed. "Did he tell you I was the only one who paid?" Phil said, "Exactly. That's why I'm calling. You're still good with us. But you should know, Clark's trying to lock down the property for next year under a new name. You might want to act fast. So I did. I booked it again. For the exact same week. Under a business name I'd quietly filed, Useful Outsider Retreats, LLC. And this time, I listed the cabin on Airbnb. For a premium price. Within a week, it was booked. Some software engineers from Seattle reserved the whole place. I even arranged for a welcome basket and gave them a guide to the best nearby trails and restaurants. They left a glowing 5-star review. Clark tried to book again in November. Denied. Margot tried calling Phil personally in December. Denied. Tessa left a 1-star Google review for the cabin company. Removed within 24 hours. By January, Margot had moved into her cousin's guest room to clear her head. She left behind 3 boxes of old clothes, a coffee mug, and her wedding ring on the dresser. I stared at that ring for a long time. And then I picked it up, logged into Facebook, and changed my relationship status to divorced. No announcement. No dramatic post. Just a quiet click. And the story wasn't over yet. It took 3 months after Margot moved out for the divorce papers to finally land on my desk. She didn't contest it. In fact, her lawyer reached out first. Guess she didn't want to fight over anything, she just wanted out. No alimony. No drawn-out arguments. Just a clean break. Fine by me. We had no kids. No shared property. Just a joint bank account she hadn't touched in months. I transferred what was mine and closed it. But I wasn't done with the rest of them yet. See, Clark and the rest of that family had made me feel small. Like I was nothing but a walking wallet, a work mule, a tagalong. They laughed behind my back. And when I stood up for myself, they called it an overreaction. So I gave them one final reason to remember me. Flathead Lake had always been their sacred place. The summer tradition. Margot once said her grandparents' ashes were scattered there. Every year they came back, took pictures by the same tree, sat on the same dock. That cabin was part of their legacy. So I bought it. Not just booked it. I bought it. It wasn't cheap. I cashed out part of my retirement, sold off a rental property I owned in Cortez, and struck a deal with the elderly couple who owned the land. They were tired of managing it. I paid in full. And renamed the place Helper's Haven. I didn't make it an Airbnb. I made it an invite-only retreat. For people like me, folks who'd been burned by family, manipulated, made to feel invisible. It became a place for second chances. I hosted writing groups, fishing trips, and even a few small veteran retreats. But I kept one weekend every summer completely blocked off. Clark found out. He emailed me from a new address, his old one must have been blocked. The subject line, "We need to talk." He wrote, "We understand you're angry. But the cabin was our tradition long before you. Can't we work something out? The family misses that place. Maybe we can rent it for a few days this summer." I didn't respond. Instead, I posted a photo on the old family group chat thread, one I never left. It was a selfie on the dock. Me, holding a beer, the lake behind me glowing under sunset. Caption, "Don't worry. I'm keeping it busy." I waited. 5 minutes. Tessa left the group chat. Then Clark. Then Margot. Only one person stayed. Jess, the one cousin who never said anything cruel to me. She messaged me privately a few days later and said, "Honestly, good for you." That fall, I changed my phone number. Changed my email. Cut the last threads. I spent the next summer hosting a group of single dads who'd been through hell in their marriages. We grilled. We hiked. We laughed. On the last night, we sat around the fire pit. One of the guys asked me, "What made you start this place?" I looked at the flames, smiled, and said, "Someone once told me I was useful. I decided to finally be useful for the right people. And for the first time in years, I meant it."